My name is Allie, Armbruster. I grew up in Atlanta. I went to private schools. My dad's an attorney. I had a really great childhood. I had a really good life. I'm also in recovery from heroin addiction. And it's really important to me to talk about how my life went from being so charmed to living the life of an addict. This disease can happen to anyone, and I think a lot of times people don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of stigma surrounding addiction. I grew up in Atlanta, went to private schools. I was always a little bit of a nerd. I started doing debate when I was in the 9th grade, and it was amazing to me because I found this whole world of nerds to hang out with, and it was like a social group that I felt like I finally fit in, because I really struggled with that in middle school. I was very, very skinny and awkward, and I always was comparing myself to other people and feeling like I wasn't good enough. When I was on a debate trip when I was in the 10th grade, I smoked pot for the first time with somebody who was on the debate team. At that time, my mom found out, and I convinced her not to tell my dad. And I told, I was like, everybody does it. It's not a big deal. And, at that time, it wasn't, but I loved it. And it made me feel like I belonged. And I feel like even before I went to college, I had sort of this unhealthy relationship with substances. Like, I believed that I needed them. In sort of a perfect storm, I met a guy who was a heroin addict. And I knew that he was a heroin addict, but I feel like I was very naive. He would go into withdrawal and need heroin. And it got to the point where I was like, you need to pick heroin or me. And he was like, heroin. And I was like, well, then it must be pretty good. I'll probably try it. Well, I snorted it the first time. And then the second time I shot it. And it was, within weeks, I was completely physically addicted. And the first time I went into withdrawal, I felt like I had the flu times 1,000. I felt like I was gonna die. And once you get to that point, it is really hard to get out. I dated that same guy for 3 years, and we supported our habit by stealing from stores, stealing from my parents. I did things that, I absolutely disgust me when I look back on them now. When you're a woman and you run out of things to sell, you sell your body. And it got to the point where I would literally do anything to avoid feeling dope sick. And so after I overdosed, I went to Florida to stay with my aunts, one of them who is in recovery, my dad's sister. And while I was down there, my boyfriend overdosed and died. And so that was sort of the first time that I really felt like, I needed to change my life. I had a few periods of sobriety. In the next 4 years, I would get, 60 days or 90 days, and then I would relapse again. It was like I wanted to get sober really badly, but I also could not shake that need to get high. Over those years, I was arrested 6 times. I went to jail 5 times for felony heroin possession and cocaine. The 5th time, they convicted me of a felony. And being a convicted felon changes everything. It makes it almost impossible to get a job. I lost my license, so my stepmom had to drive me around for 6 months. She gave me a job because I could not even get hired at like Kroger or Walmart. I mean, it was like my background check was making it impossible for me to move on with my life. I look back on that time period and it's like I had every resource available to me. My parents wanted to help. My stepmom was willing to drive me around and give me a job. But most people don't have that. And when you get out of jail and you have a felony conviction and absolutely no resources, I feel like, what are you gonna do except for go back to what you know, which is getting high? And I still had 1 relapse left, which is, I think it's really important to keep in mind that with all of this stuff, the recovery process has setbacks. But all of those like short time periods that you put together where you start to see a glimmer of hope, they add up. And in the end, I relapsed and I overdosed again. And I woke up in Piedmont Hospital, and they told me that I was very, very close to not making it. I woke up and I had a willingness to do the work that I needed to do to get sober. And I can't really account for that. I don't know what changed the last time. For me, I can't help but think there's some sort of higher power involved in this, because of my own accord, I would have shot heroin until I died. But this time I woke up and I went through the process of a 12-step program. I got a sponsor, went to a halfway house, and this time it stuck. And so that was October 7th of 2015. And I have been sober since then, so it's been a little over 3 years.